The original Xbox is now 20 years old, and while the console brand is successful and on its 4th generation, when it was first announced, a lot of people doubted that Microsoft, a company known for Internet Explorer and Excel, would be able to compete with the likes of Nintendo and Sony, and they were wrong. The Xbox sold 3 million more units than the GameCube and has launched a successful brand that's still going strong today. However, despite the Xbox brand being stronger than ever, original Xbox games are super cheap compared to the competition. Welcome to Retronomics, the series that follows price trends in video games, and today we're talking about the original Microsoft Xbox, the chunky computer in console form, the DirectX box. The Xbox was dismissed from the beginning in favor of the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo GameCube, but with games like Halo and Forza, the Xbox quickly gained favor among gamers, especially due to the graphical capability, and it also came with an Ethernet port which could be used as a novel feature at the time, online gaming. Yet, despite its love today, Xbox games are pretty cheap compared to its competitors. A game that came out on the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and the GameCube is almost always cheapest on the Xbox, and not by a couple of dollars, almost 50% cheaper. Looking at the full library of games on the Xbox, only a handful are more than $100, and the majority of the library is less than $50 for a complete in-box copy. So why are these games so cheap? Well, it's mostly due to the Xbox backwards compatibility initiative. In addition to the Xbox Series being able to play the original disc, you can buy those games digitally as well. Also, the Xbox originally was incredibly easy to hack, and you could just load whatever you wanted on it. I had a modded Xbox back in the day, and when Blockbuster was still around, they had a game subscription service that allowed you to rent 3 games every day. So I would rip them all to my Xbox and amassed a sizable, albeit illegal, library of games. The games aren't dirt cheap, but I would say that the Xbox library is one of the most undervalued systems today, even with the pandemic price boom. So I got 20 games to forecast, but first, here's how Retronomics works. I get all of my price data from pricecharting.com, and I also take a look at eBay sold listings as well to make a determination on where the price is going to go. Is it going to go up, down, or stay the same? All of the games are released in North America, and they're all the complete in-box price. And all prices are accurate as of the publishing date of this video, which is listed right below in the description. So if you're finding this video a couple of months down the road and the prices aren't accurate, well, I'm sorry, but if you like this type of content, subscribe for future videos so you'll be like my core audience and never miss an episode. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at some Xbox games. Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast is the 9th game in the Outrun series, and the reason why it's more expensive than the other versions of this game is mainly because it's a late in life Xbox title, and the Xbox 360 had already been out for a year, so naturally it's one of those lower print titles, and it happens to be a really good game. It has a unique soundtrack compared to the PlayStation 2 version, and the price peaked at $217 back in August and has been settling back down, with some copies going for around $100, but there are still copies going for over $200. With this being one of the rarer games, I would keep an eye out for a price that you're comfortable with and snatch it up when you see it. Stubbs the Zombie Rebel Without a Pulse has been re-released physically on modern platforms, and so the price of the original Xbox version has been steadily decreasing ever since. Peaking at $113 in September, I think it's safe to say that we can wait on this one to drop in price to pre-pandemic levels, as there are already sold listings popping up for less than what it was going for at the start of 2020. Panzer Dragoon Orta is an on-rails shooter that is exclusive to the Xbox. It's pretty inexpensive despite the original Panzer Dragoon being re-released for modern platforms. And it hasn't really been affected at all by the pandemic, just peaking at about $49 in April of 2021, and that's only $6 more than it was at its previous peak in 2018. I would buy this now if you're an Xbox collector and into these types of games. It's a great value all around. Manhunt is dramatically shot up in value since September due to the fact that it is backwards compatible and works on the Xbox Series X. Unlike other backwards compatible titles that I've covered in recent videos, Manhunt being from Rockstar and coupled with rumors that a remake or sequel might be in the works has caused a massive jump in price, doubling in value over just a couple of months with no signs of slowing down. So I'd snag it now if you don't want to wait for the price drop, and even then the price might not be enough to go back down before the initial spike. The days of this being a $20 title might be over, but you can still buy it digitally. Halo 2 is one of the best-selling games of all time, so copies are pretty inexpensive. The Master Chief Collection available on Game Pass has kept the price low because you can play multiplayer that way, and that's one of the main reasons why this game sold so well. So buy it now if you are one of those 4 people who likes to play Halo single player, or if you still like going through the hassle of playing on private LAN servers. Otogi 2 is a backwards compatible title, and now the demand for the game has gone through the roof, almost doubling in value since August. Otogi 2 is also a From Software title, and as I've mentioned in previous videos, those games have fetched a high dollar based off of that alone. So expect this game to be expensive going forward. It might be beneficial to wait for a plateau and a slight drop after the initial hype. The current rush leads to stupid value increases because of the FOMO, but if you really want to experience these games without having to shell out that amount of money, you can pay $20 on the Microsoft Store and get it digitally. Jurassic Park Operation Genesis is a real-time strategy game and park builder. It used to be crazy expensive, but now has dropped in value over the years because of entries into the series. The price is still high for what it is, but it's been stable over the past 2 years, so you can pick it up now if you're into these games or play the graphically superior games on modern platforms. This game is really going to be for completionists from here on out. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has climbed back in value after being pulled from modern eShops. The constant reminder that digital has a limited shelf life has spooked gamers into securing a physical copy. Rumors are that Disney does have plans to bring the game back to marketplaces, but nothing has been confirmed. I would probably wait until that's the case. Disney, for as monopolistic as they are, seem to have been more than happy to re-release their old games of previous franchises, but it still might be Capcom dragging their feet, as DuckTales Remastered took a while to return to the eShops after a short hiatus. Call of Cthulhu was a game that I mentioned in my horror episode. It's leveled out for now, and I don't really think that we'll see it climb too high, and since the backwards compatibility is essentially finished, we might see the prices taper off as time goes on. There are other Call of Cthulhu games out there for modern platforms, so as long as there's new ones, we might see the price remain steady. Conker Live and Reloaded is a remake of the popular Nintendo 64 title, but with some subtle changes. As such, this version hasn't gotten the attention of the older version, and with Rare Replay containing the Nintendo 64 unedited version on the Xbox One, this one is only good if you want to see what Rare could have been capable of if the original team hadn't left. This is still a lot of fun to play, especially if you have 4-player ready for couch multiplayer. Kakuto Chojin is a Dead or Alive competitor that didn't really take off, but it's cheap. under $20, and it has been for a very long time. So if you want to try something new, it's practically an impulse buy, and it probably won't increase in value anytime soon. Max Payne is based off of that Mark Wahlberg movie, or is it the other way around? This game was really groundbreaking for the time, introducing some really cool gameplay elements like slowing down time to shoot enemies properly. It's a PC staple, but really good on the Xbox as well. It's still less than $10 despite it getting the backwards compatibility treatment like other games on this list. So if you haven't played this game yet, go and get it because it still holds up for being a 20-year-old game. Jedi Outcast is also available on backwards compatibility, but has remained steady in value mainly because it's been out digitally on modern platforms for a while now. This is one of my favorite games that I still go back to from time to time on PC, and I don't really expect the game to climb in value too much over time. It really hasn't been affected too much by the pandemic, and there are arguably better Star Wars lightsaber options, even if Kyle Katarn is no longer canon. Arx Fatalis peaked in July of this year and has dropped really hard, but don't expect it to drop below pre-pandemic levels anytime soon. This is an uncommon game, and typically when games like this jump in value, they don't drop in price after they peak, but they only drop to a little bit above what they were previously going for, and that becomes the new baseline price. The price isn't too obscene though, so if you are looking for a physical version, I would pick it up now. It's also $5 on Steam if you want to try it before you buy it. Steel Battalion is a really unique game, not necessarily because of the game itself, but the controller that was made specifically because of it. This main edition of the game comes with a full mech control set complete with rudders and a joystick, and as such the game has notoriety. I don't really think many people can think of Xbox without thinking of this game, and that notoriety and uniqueness comes at a cost, especially the complete in-box version. As time goes on, finding a good condition box with all of the pieces could get difficult, so if you have the space and the money, might be worth it to suck it up and spend the money now or regret it later. Futurama is a game that plays like an episode of the cult classic series. In fact, it pretty much is an extra episode of the series. All original voice actors, same style of animation, but in 3D. When the game came out, the series wasn't as popular as it is now, and the game didn't sell very well. The resurgence of Futurama a couple of years later caused the price to rise, and the previous game price boom has had a lot of people scoop up this rare, good game. I would expect this game to remain around the price for the foreseeable future, and maybe we can petition to get a remaster like that SpongeBob game. The Guy game is peak early 2000s, capitalizing off of the Girls Gone Wild phenomenon. This is a trivia game featuring young women in bikinis, and if they get the answer wrong, they have to take off their top. The controversy of this game goes beyond naked boobies because one of the women in the series was underage and sued to have the game removed from the shelves. Despite that controversy, the game is inexpensive, probably because it's a trivia game with an underage girl showing her breasts, so it's not really something that you want to show off in your collection. But if you are an Xbox completionist, picking it up now would probably be a good idea. Def Jam Fight for New York is available on all three of the systems, and the Xbox version is the cheapest. Now I can say that I've covered all three versions of this game, and I can say that the Xbox version is on its way back down in price, but it does seem to be slowing down, and it might level out in value from here on out. If you haven't already purchased this game, I would suggest picking it up on the Xbox if it is your favorite console to have multi-platform games on, or unless you're super rich and like having the same game on multiple platforms. The Xbox version has the same content as the PlayStation 2 version, while the GameCube version is missing content. Spy vs. Spy is a reimagining of the classic game from the 8-bit era. The new game is in 3D and cel shaded to give a cartoony feel to that zany violence as you go around setting traps to kill other spies while you try to complete the objectives before they do. Spy vs. Spy is from Mad Magazine, and I'm not even sure if anybody under 30 knows what that is, so I think the game will remain inexpensive for the foreseeable future, unless it gets picked up by Scott the Woz or something. This is a game that looks like it would be a lot of fun for 4 players, and it's much more straightforward than the NES version. Psychonauts is made by Double Fine, which features a very unique premise and off-the-wall gameplay elements. The game has become a cult classic over the years, especially with the agonizing long wait for the sequel, which is finally available on modern platforms, and benefits from next-gen graphic features like ray tracing and HDR. And that sequel hype has caused the price of this game, which has always been inexpensive, to peak at $80, but that price is quickly subsiding. It's also playable on Xbox Series through the backwards compatibility list, and it's also on Game Pass, so I'd wait a bit for the price to level out, or you can get it for $10 digitally as well. So there you go, 20 original Xbox titles, including some that are backwards compatible with the new Xbox Series X and available digitally on the Xbox Series S. Even with the pandemic causing the prices to jump significantly, the Xbox is still pretty affordable. I'm sure there's something to be said about the PlayStation 2 and its hold on people. Maybe more people had it as a kid. I mean, it is the best-selling console of all time. But in terms of console sales, the Xbox sold 3 million more units than the Nintendo GameCube. And we all know how bonkers those prices have gotten in the past year. But I really think it has something to do with Microsoft's efforts to keep the 20-year-old library active. Even if they are no longer working on making more titles backwards compatible, they have made a significant effort to make some of the more popular titles available, and even if you don't have the original disc, you can still buy the game digitally, or it gets put onto the Xbox Game Pass. Even still, a working Xbox is a lot of fun, and the amount of modifications that were offered are pretty fun to poke around with. It can make a really awesome retro emulation system, albeit one that you can only hook up to a retro TV unless you mod it with HDMI. If you like this video, give it a like and share it with those who might find it interesting. If you're new here, consider subscribing for future videos. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at snicktendo. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.